Chapter 2 of the Paradise Mystery. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Stephanie König. The Paradise Mystery by J.S. Fletcher. Chapter 2 Making an Enemy. It was characteristic of Pemberton Bryce that he always walked into a room as if its occupant were asleep and he was afraid of waking him. He had a gentle step which was soft without being stealthy, and quiet movements which brought him suddenly to anybody's side before his presence was noticed. He was by Ransford's desk ere Ransford knew he was in the surgery, and Ransford's sudden realization of his presence roused a certain feeling of irritation in his mind, which he instantly endeavoured to suppress. It was no use getting cross with a man of whom you were about to rid yourself, he said to himself. And for the moment, after replying to his assistant's greeting, a greeting as quiet as his entrance, he went on reading his letters, and Bryce turned off to that part of the surgery in which the drugs were kept, and busied himself in making up some prescription. 10 minutes went by in silence. Then Ransford pushed his correspondence aside, laid a paperweight on it, and twisting his chair round, looked at the man to whom he was going to say some unpleasant things. Within himself he was revolving a question. How would Bryce take it? He had never liked this assistant of his, although he had then had him in employment for nearly 2 years. There was something about Pemberton Bryce which he did not understand and could not fathom. He had come to him with excellent testimonials and good recommendations. He was well up to his work, successful with patients, thoroughly capable as a general practitioner. There was no fault to be found with him on any professional grounds. But to Ransford his personality was objectable. Why, he was not quite sure. Outwardly, Bryce was rather more than presentable, a tall, good-looking man of 28 or 30, whom some people, women especially, would call handsome. He was the sort of young man who knows the value of good clothes and a smart appearance, and his professional manner was all that could be desired. But Ransford could not help distinguishing between Bryce the doctor and Bryce the man, and Bryce the man he did not like. Outside the professional part of him, Bryce seemed to him to be undoubtedly deep, sly, cunning. He conveyed the impression of being one of those men whose ears are always on the stretch, who take everything in and give little out. There was a curious air of watchfulness and of secrecy about him in private matters, which was as repellent, to Ransford's thinking, as it was hard to explain. Anyway, in private affairs he did not like his assistants, and he liked him less than ever as he glanced at him on this particular occasion. "I want a word with you," he said curtly. "I'd better say it now." Bryce, who was slowly pouring some liquid from one bottle into another, looked quietly across the room and did not interrupt himself in his work. Ransford knew that he must have recognized a certain significance in the words just addressed to him, but he showed no outward sign of it, and the liquid went on trickling from one bottle to the other with the same uniform steadiness. "Yes?" said Bryce inquiringly. "One moment." He finished his task calmly, put the corks in the bottles, labelled one, restored the other to a shelf, and turned round. Not a man to be easily startled, not easily turned from a purpose, this, thought Ransford as he glanced at Bryce's eyes, which had a trick of fastening their gaze on people with an odd, disconcerting persistency. "I'm sorry to say what I must say," he began, "but you've brought it on yourself. I gave you a hint some time ago that your attentions were not welcome to Miss Bewery." Bryce made no immediate response. Instead, leaning almost carelessly and indifferently against the table at which he had been busy with drugs and bottles, he took a small file from his waistcoat pocket and began to polish his carefully cut nails. "Yes," he said, after a pause. "Well?" "In spite of it," continued Ransford, "you've since addressed her again on the matter. Not merely once, but twice." Bryce put his file away, and thrusting his hands in his pockets, crossed his feet as he leaned back against the table, his whole attitude suggesting, whether meaningly or not, that he was very much at his ease. "There's a great deal to be said on a point like this," he observed. "If a man wishes a certain young woman to become his wife, what right has any other man, or the young woman herself, for that matter, to say that he mustn't express his desires to her?" "None," said Ransford, "provided he only does it once, and takes the answer he gets as final." "I disagree with you entirely," retorted Bryce. "On the last particular, at any rate. A man who considers any word of a woman's as being final is a fool. What a woman thinks on Monday she's almost dead certain not to think on Tuesday. The whole history of human relationship is on my side there. It's no opinion, it's a fact." Ransford stared at this frank remark, and Bryce went on, coolly and imperturbably, as if he had been discussing a medical problem. "A man who takes a woman's first answer as final," he continued, "is, I repeat, a fool. There are lots of reasons why a woman shouldn't know her own mind at the first time of asking. She may be too surprised. She mayn't be quite decided. She may say one thing when she really means another. That often happens. She isn't much better equipped at the second time of asking. And there are women, young ones, who aren't really certain of themselves at the third time. All that's common sense." "I'll tell you what it is!" suddenly exclaimed Ransford, after remaining silent for a moment under this flow of philosophy. "I'm not going to discuss theories and ideas. I know one young woman, at any rate, who is certain of herself. Miss Bewery does not feel any inclination to you, now nor at any time to be. She's told you so 3 times, and you should take her answer and behave yourself accordingly." Bryce favoured his senior with a searching look. "How does Miss Bewery know what she mayn't be inclined to in the future?" he asked. "She may come to regard me with favour." "No, she won't," declared Ransford. "Better hear the truth and be done with it. She doesn't like you, and she doesn't want to either. Why can't you take your answer like a man?" "What's your conception of a man?" asked Bryce. "That and a good one!" exclaimed Ransford. "May satisfy you, but not me," said Bryce. "Mine's different. My conception of a man is of a being who's got some perseverance. You can get anything in this world, anything, by pegging away for it." "You're not going to get my ward," suddenly said Ransford. "That's flat. She doesn't want you, and she's now said so 3 times, and I support her." "What have you against me?" asked Bryce calmly. "If, as you say, you support her in her resolution not to listen to my proposals, you must have something against me. What is it?" "That's a question you've no right to put," replied Ransford, "for it's utterly unnecessary. So I'm not going to answer it. I've nothing against you as regards your work nothing. I'm willing to give you an excellent testimonial." "Oh!" remarked Bryce quietly. That means you wish me to go away?"